Here we go.
Hello and welcome to Bounding into Comics. My name is John Trent. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief at Bounding into Comics. And today I got a story about Star Trek actor George Takei taking to Twitter to call on Americans to accept higher gas and food prices in order to put the screws to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Takei wrote, "Americans, we can endure higher prices for food and gas if it means putting the screws to Putin. Consider it a patriotic donation in the fight for freedom over tyranny." This looks like war propaganda to me. It looks like George Takei is trying to get Americans to embrace a war that has nothing to do with Americans. This is utterly a ridiculous assertion. It should be rejected on its face. No one should be taking this advice seriously. Not only do I believe that this is war propaganda, but the idea that it would somehow be a patriotic donation doesn't make any sense either, given that the conflict is between Russia and Ukraine and has nothing to do with the United States of America, or should have nothing to do with the United States of America. It is not a fight for freedom over tyranny when it comes to Americans. Yes, it is a fight for Ukrainians and their country, but it is not a fight for Americans. And I don't think the country as a whole should be getting involved in that conflict. Now, I think there are more pressing matters at hand in concern to the fight for freedom over tyranny here in the United States of America rather than abroad. I think we need to, if we're even going to do anything abroad, you need to clean out your own house first. Something that we are really struggling to do in the United States of America. But this isn't the first tweet George Takei has made about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Back in February, he tried to use Russia's invasion of Ukraine as a political wedge in the United States, writing, "The situation in Ukraine is deadly serious, and America requires serious leadership. The MAGA GOP politicians are not serious people. They are trolls, attention seekers, and Putin apologists. We cannot allow them to control the levers of power and the military ever again." Clearly, we're seeing what people like George Takei want to do with the levers of power, and that is increase our food and gas prices in order to get us into a war with Russia, a major nuclear power. And he's the one calling other people not serious people. Maybe he should look in the mirror. Nevertheless, he would do this again towards the end of February, writing, "We need to hang Putin around the neck of every pathetic, fawning GOP coward who has ever praised him or even failed to condemn him. No mercy." That's right, this lunatic wants to hang Putin around everyone's neck, even if you haven't said anything about him. Because if you haven't failed to condemn him, you are just as guilty, according to George Takei. Absolute lunacy. But it is to be expected from someone who is not serious, like George Takei is. Takei would also condemn the invasion and claim violence and war are never the answer. He wrote, "Horrified at the brazen, illegal, and bloody ambitions of the despot in Moscow. Praying for the many brave souls in Ukraine. Violence and war is never the answer. History will condemn the name of Vladimir Putin." I disagree with him with the idea that violence and war is never the answer. I think there is a lot of places for violence and war. There is such thing as a just war. You can defend yourself and use violence to do so. So that assertion is ridiculous on its face. I do agree with him about praying for the brave souls in Ukraine, but I also think you should also be praying for the people in Russia, the leadership of Russia, and the Russian soldiers. You should be praying for them as well, because you want to end this conflict. You want to end this violent conflict. You don't want to see the violence continuing to spread, the horrors that war inflicts, because war is terrible, but that doesn't mean it can never be justified, and you want to pray for an end to it, and that means praying for both sides. Takei also called for de-escalation. He tweeted, "Putin's war in Ukraine is devastating, a needless loss of lives and homes for countless families. We simply cannot allow further escalation. The world saw the horrific consequences of nuclear weapons for the people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. #never again." Accompanying this statement, he shared an image from the Union of Concerned Scientists that reads, This must not escalate. Right now we need commitments from world leaders to ensure this war does not escalate. Long-term, our leaders must commit to a non-nuclear solution to create a safer future for all of us. So I think this tweet can be interpreted a lot of different ways. I do agree with him that we don't want this war to escalate and you should be finding diplomatic means to try and end that. But I also think that you could also read this as the fact that in order to stop the escalation, you have to put boots on the ground or have escalation from someone else to stop the escalation in Russia and Ukraine, or the escalation from Russia against Ukraine. And I completely disagree with that. As I've said before, I don't think the United States should be getting involved in this particular conflict. But I'll leave that one up to you guys to make out. I do think that it's really hard to determine exactly what he's saying, but I think based on this more recent tweet where he's literally calling for Americans to endure higher prices for food and gas if it means putting the screws to Putin, does seem to imply that George Takei's idea that he never thinks that he always thinks that violence and war are wrong, he actually doesn't believe that, and he's trying to get the United States involved in the war. So those are my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you think. My name is John Trent, and you've been watching Bounding into Comics.